Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, we're gonna be dealing with one of our first lesson in instructional material development, which is about the principles and procedures of materials development. But before we proceed with that, we need to look into first what is the core of our, the subject or the course that we're gonna be dealing with, which is about the instructional material development. So let's proceed. So let's understand first what do you mean by materials development. Materials development is basically this is a crucial aspect of language teaching and learning because this is utilized as looking into the discussion, the content that facilitate acquisition of the language skills and knowledge. So this process encompasses a wide range of materials wherein students can look at it as a knowledge bank to from the textbook, workbooks, to digital resources, and multimedia content. So these are utilized by our students for them to, have an independent learning. Not only with that, but this is also utilized by our teachers for them to be guided on how the teaching and learning process would go. So the principles and procedures would also look into the guided materials because these are essential for ensuring effective and engaging learning experience. And this will also understand and help you for our teachers to look into if to determine if they really learned a lot from the discussions presented by the teacher or presented from the discussion written in the textbook. Because in the textbook and workbook, there are discussions and also there are some assessments. And also for the digital resources and multimedia content, these are a forms of instructional material that will help them, that will help the students be guided in learning a topic while assessing themselves also. So let's proceed. So we're going to be looking into first the principles of materials development. What do you mean by principles of materials development? These are the things that will guide you in terms of looking the right learning material, crafting your own learning material, and of course, looking into what material are you gonna be looking and presented, and looking into how the process making will be integrated with it. So once again, these are the principles of materials development. So first, we have what we call the learner-centered approach. So what do you mean by learner-centered approach? So learner-centered approach is basically more of the learner is a center of learning. So therefore, all the things that you have presented for the materials development would go around with the learner's needs, interests, and abilities in mind. So, of course, the student should be can relate to what is into the learning material and make sure that the topics and the content are relevant to the students and will engage them to be motivated and enhance their language acquisition process. So in short, if you are the one crafting the learning material, you need to be looking at how does the learners think? Paano mo siya patututunin? How do you want the learners to learn something? So do you want the learners to get the big things already? Or do you want the learners to do it, tiptoeing, you small and going, topic to bigger topic and all. So in short, as a person or as an individual who crafts the instructional material or you develop the instructional material, make sure that you are thinking the learner while you are drafting and crafting the learning material so that it's not for your material, but it's for the material of the students. Okay, so let's move on. Another principle is authenticity. What do you mean by authenticity? Authenticity is basically more of looking at the real world context. So make sure that the content in the learning material are what the students see in the real world setting. So in short, authentic materials provide learners to expose themselves on how language is used naturally in various situations. So for example, if it's language acquisition, you have a learning material there that the students order food, taking a telephone call, talking to a tourist, and those are authentic, meaning they are contexts that our students are experiencing in a real life setting. So that is what we mean by authenticity. You try to look into a real life scenario and put it into your learning materials. So let's move on. Next one is cultural sensitivity. Cultural sensitivity is basically more of respecting and reflecting the cultural diversity of the learners. So you try to look into not only with their religion, but also you need to be sensitive on their cultural perspective. And at the same time, there should be no stereotyping and biases. What do you mean by stereotyping? Sometimes when you try to put it into your learning material, you try to generalize it and you try to put one side only. So in short, when you try to craft with a learning material or an item in your learning material, you need to avoid stereotyping. You need to avoid biases so that you will not hurt the students, not also hurt a different, different kinds of people that would be affected with the concept or context that you are trying to present into your instructional material. So include a range of cultural perspective that will create an inclusive learning environment. What do you mean by inclusive learning environment? Meaning everyone is equal. So you try to put an inclusive learning environment that emotions and perspective of individuals are being respected. So that is what you mean by cultural sensitivity. So next one is sequencing and progression. Sequencing and progression is basically more of, this is how you try to organize your learning material, your exercises, your activities in a logical sequence that would align with the gradual development of language skills. So for example, the figures of speech. I know you're very familiar with the figures of speech. You don't tell them to write a sentence already if they have no idea of the figures of speech. So the noun, the pronoun, the verb, and all. So they need to identify that one first so that it's easy for them to craft their own, sentences. So before you make them learn a big thing, you need to let them, scaffold first small things for them to learn. So as what I'm telling you, if it's a learner-centered approach, definitely you try to, put your position to how the learners would learn. So you need to sequence, and it should be in progression. So logical sequence that will align the gradual development of language skills. And the concept should be introduced in a way that builds upon prior knowledge. Prior knowledge is basically more of having their schema, meaning their background knowledge first, so that before you give them a new knowledge. Because this will help the learners put a progress from simple to complex language task. So that is the core of sequencing and progression. Next one is variety of skills. Variety of skills is basically more of effective materials should have a development of all language skills: the listening, the speaking, the reading, and writing. In short, in all your activities, you should have those varied skills so that the students would have practiced those varied skills, and therefore it could be into a higher order learning. So they should provide opportunities for learners to practice the skills individually and in integrated ways. They can do it individually, they can do it in pair, they can do it, by group or whatsoever. So just make sure that they are not only trained to be a reader, they are not only trained to be a listener, speaker, but all of it. Because we are trying to look into a holistic development of the language skills of our learners. Next one is flexibility. Flexibility is basically more of, the word is flexible. So material should allow for adaptation and customization. So what do you mean by adaptation? This flexibility ensures that the materials can be effectively used in various educational settings in a way that And there are series of activities that would be flexible in different types of learners with different contexts and with different learning abilities and interests. So in short, your learning materials should have the flexibility of it so that it's easy for others to use your learning materials because it's general and they can utilize it and adapt it in any way that they can. So make sure that is one of the core when you're trying to come up with a learning material. Okay, develop a learning material. So that would be all, everyone, for that first topic, and we'll be continuing with our discussion for the procedures of materials development. So what do you mean by procedures? You will eventually learn that one into our next topic. So that would be all, everyone. Thank you so much and have a nice day.